wanted to make sure your elected officials understood the requirements and responsibilities of MS4. So this is a chance for them to hear from us on that. So thank you for that. I want to especially thank Shane over here and Grant for putting this workshop together. I don't know about you, but everything takes longer with the pandemic. Everything takes more preparation. We're doing the best with technology. And I give you guys both a big credit for saying, hey, let's try this both ways. Let's try it in person and virtually. So thank you for doing that. So we're ready to get started with the workshop. And I'm really pleased to announce Chris Abrupta, or introduce Chris. He's the Extension Specialist, Water Resources for Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Normally works in New Jersey. He just got a little lost wandering over here, and we're glad to have him. So Chris, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. No, I mean, we go wherever we're needed, actually, and we go wherever we like the people. So Pennsylvania is perfect for us. People are nice here. Food is good, so we love coming here and helping out whenever we can. Let's see. Okay, what am I doing here? Which arrow key am I using here? That one?
Should work.
Okay, and when it doesn't,
Not.
oh, I know what you have to do. You have to go here. Make sure you're on the slide. Got it.
Look at you.
Okay, so hopefully you can all hear me. I'm going to talk about stormwater green infrastructure. I'm a civil engineer. I run the Water Resources Program at Rutgers Cooperative Extension. I have a staff of about 10 full-time people. We typically run around New Jersey helping municipalities design and implement stormwater management practices. So, you know, we wind up producing full sets of engineering drawings and then working a lot with the public works guys to actually implement the project. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of fun for us. So green infrastructure is what we're talking about today. It's really an approach for stormwater management where we're trying to really mimic the natural water cycle. So we're trying to capture stormwater near its source, infiltrate that water or absorb that water, and at times reuse the water. So we actually have some ways we capture the water and then reuse it in systems. So this is a natural water cycle. We teach this in school throughout the country, usually in 3rd or 4th grade. We talk about how the snow melts from the mountaintops and comes down along the prairies and where the buffalo roam, and water is recycled. And you know, we can't create or destroy water. It's just the same water that the kids are drinking now is the water the dinosaurs peed in billions of years ago. So the kids get a kick out of that, you know. But this isn't really our water cycle because what we've done is we've added all these impervious surfaces, right? So as we begin adding more and more development, we get more and more stormwater runoff. A natural condition, a forested condition is about 10% runoff. We get single family homes on 1 2-acre lots, you get about 20% runoff. You get more densely populated homes, 1/4-acre lots, about 30% runoff. And then you get downtown areas where you have buildings in Philadelphia and even some of the smaller towns, just the downtown community, you get about 55% runoff. So the idea as engineers, what we're trying to do is make those 20 and 30 and 55% runoffs look like 10. Okay, so we're trying to capture that water and use that and put it back into the ground. So in effect, we've created this urban water cycle. Okay, so there's much less infiltration, much more runoff. There's also less evapotranspiration, so there's less evaporation and transpiration from the trees and the plants because there's less trees and plants, so those plants aren't giving up water back into the atmosphere. So we try to use green infrastructure to really restore that water cycle. All the green infrastructure practices have some of these components. Some of them have all the components, some of them only have a few. So they infiltrate, they filter water, they store water, they enhance evaporation, and they enhance transpiration. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. So these are the practices we're going to talk about today, and I'll talk a little bit later about how to design some of these practices. Okay, so the first is a bioretention system. Now, bioretention is a long word, which we hate using because the public doesn't really understand it that much. The engineers love it, scientists love it, but when I go into a community, I talk to a mayor who maybe is an accountant or a lawyer, and I tell him I want to put a bioretention system in front of his library. He looks at me like I'm crazy. But then when I tell him, no, we're going to put a rain garden in front of your library, then they start, oh, that sounds nice, right? So there's different types of bioretention systems. The rain garden is one of them. How's that? Good. Okay, so the rain garden is one of them. Bioswales is another, stormwater planters, curb extensions, tree filter boxes. We're also going to talk about permeable pavements, rainwater harvesting, dry wells, and rooftop systems, okay? So these are the types of bioretention systems. The bioretention cell or the rain garden is the one that we most think about. The other system is more of a swale. So it's more of a swale is a nice word for ditch. It's what I tell everybody. So we call them bioswales. So bio means life. So it's a ditch with plants in it, basically, right? And it's designed to filter and infiltrate water. We also have on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see you have stormwater planters and planter boxes, which are really built into the sidewalk area. And they're very much structured systems, but they still behave like bioretention, where they're capturing the water and letting it back into the ground. And then you have these curb extensions, which is a little different because now we're extending the sidewalk out into the roadway. We're taking up a parking spot and we're harvesting rainwater there and a bioretention system there. Now, what's nice about that is that also slows down traffic and can protect pedestrians when they're crossing the road. So you see a lot of these near intersections where people aren't supposed to park anyway. So the idea is that, you know, these will allow the drivers to see with unobstructed view who's car coming, and so people won't get hit as they cross the road. So rain gardens that we're really going to focus on today. This is an example of one. We call this basically, it's a shallow landscape depression. And the idea is that stormwater goes into here, it fills up uniformly like a bathtub, where it slowly percolates into the ground. When you get excess water, it overflows into a direction that we identify and we make sure it goes in that spot, or it overflows into a system that takes it out under the garden, okay? Lots of different types of rain gardens. We put these in traffic islands. The picture in the dead center is one that we had done in Camden, New Jersey, where we took an abandoned gas station site and we put 4 rain gardens in there and made it into a park. It became the southern ward, entrance to the southern ward of Camden. And now it really manages all the stormwater in that area that regularly flooded goes into these gardens. So it's really nice. So I'm not sure why it keeps doing that, but let's see. Okay, there we go. If it goes out, just let me know in case I can't see behind me. So, okay, so here's the one actually we had done in Camden. This was interesting. I like showing this picture because you can see along the sidewalk, there's a trench drain. And we're trying to get water from the road into the garden. People say, well, we can't do that because there's a sidewalk there, right? But in this case, we put a trench drain through the sidewalk. Now, trench drain, most of you guys know, has a grate on top. You can ride a bicycle on it. It's not dangerous. What's nice about the grates is you can lift those out and clean that trench out if you have to. It's very easy maintenance, right? So it's a really, really nice system. You know, here's one we built at a corporate center. What I like about this picture is we dug out all the dirt, but we reused it and we kept it there. So we gave that area a little bit of a contour so you can see some character in that area now, so we didn't have to haul a lot of stuff away. Because we know that when we dig these gardens out, we have to haul dirt away and soil away. It's very expensive, right? That's what costs a lot of money is hauling material away, okay? Here's one we had done at a school. We actually used the existing inlet there, and we dug down 6 inches around the inlet, and we make this garden 6 inches deep, and it fills with water. When we get 7 inches of water in there, it overflows, and we use that inlet as the overflow. So we didn't have to create anything new there for an overflow. So that became a really nice system. And this is at school, so the kids actually came out and planted this. So it's a little bit of an educational thing too for them. We do them at individual homes, and we're trying to really encourage people to do these at homes. And the idea is that what happens here is that now the downspout, instead of being piped out to the road, it goes into the garden. The garden will hold the water and let it slowly seep into the ground. Now, most of these gardens are only designed to capture the first few inches of rain. So it's not going to help with the hurricanes, but when you get 3 or 4 inches of rain, the garden can handle that much water typically. And about 90 to 95% of the rainfall comes in storms that are less than 3 inches. So we can design this, we can capture the rain from 95% of the storms from that impervious surface, okay? Here's one that I like, it's at the parking lot. You can see this is a very manicured rain garden, has a lot of mulch in it, a lot of individual plants. It looks very neat. Some of these look very natural, so this one looks a little bit neater. And what happens, the water runs off the parking lot and goes into the system, so it's really nice. The other systems I want to talk about, permeable pavement, and this is another way of thinking about where can we store stormwater. So the original asphalt in this country was a porous asphalt. It didn't have any fine materials in it, but water passed through the asphalt and couldn't get into the ground underneath because we had compacted the ground. So it sat just below the surface of the asphalt. It froze, it expanded, it contracted, and potholes were created. So we as engineers decided we could fix that. We added fine material to the asphalt, and now the asphalt that we use today have this fine material, so water can't pass through. So now we don't have any more potholes, right? Okay, so that really didn't work that well. Okay, so but we tried, right? So now we went back to the original idea. Well, let's go back to that coarse material, but instead of letting the water sit just underneath the asphalt, let's give it a place to go, right? So we put this stone layer underneath, and you can see it here in this picture. We've got this stone layer underneath, and the water goes into the stone and slowly percolates into the ground. So as it's passing through the asphalt. Now this asphalt's a little bit softer because it doesn't have the fine material to it. So we mostly just use it for the parking spaces. When we do a parking lot or very, very low traffic roads, you can drive trucks on it, but it's not recommended on a regular basis, you know. So we have a couple different types of these permeable pavements. We have the porous asphalt, which is shown here, and you can see the cartway where the cars drive in is regular asphalt. That's the part that's wet, and the parking spots are the porous, which is dry. So the cartway flows onto this parking spots, goes into the stone, seeps into the ground underneath. It's a great system, a great place to store stormwater. We also have pervious concrete. Same concept. The concrete doesn't have the fine material, water passes right through it. We also have permeable pavers. Now, these are really nice. The water passes between the cracks in the pavers. Same type of system, stone layer underneath, but these are very expensive. Okay, so that's the problem with pavers. So if you're changing out like a concrete sidewalk with pavers, it's going to cost a lot of money. Okay, the porous asphalt costs exactly the same amount as regular asphalt. It's $2 to $4 a square foot. Where the added expenses, well, now you have to dig down and put that stone layer underneath, and when you do that, that's what costs the money. Okay, that costs the extra money. So, and we have these things, grass pavers. We use a lot of these in overflow parking. Once again, grass is growing up through these concrete blocks, and there's a stone layer underneath, and what happens is water goes right through, right into the ground. The other thing we do with green infrastructure is we harvest rainwater. And we happen to be here at a firehouse, and I know around me, the firehouses spend a lot of time washing their fire trucks and using potable water to do that. And we talk a lot with firehouses about, well, why don't you put a tank in? We can harvest rainwater, and you can use that to wash your fire trucks, right? And rainwater actually, it has a different hardness, so it doesn't spot up as much. So actually, you get a nicer wash on your truck. So the idea is that we're harvesting the rainwater. We have lots of different systems. The individual homeowners put these barrels in. Now, these barrels don't do much for stormwater management. They only capture the first 55 gallons of water. So you're really not going to solve any flooding problems with this, but you are going to build some environmental stewardship. This is a great way to get homeowners excited about doing something to save the planet. First, we convince them to put a rain barrel in. Next, we convince them to put a rain garden in. Next thing you know, they're trying to put a green roof on their house. So we refer to the rain barrel as the gateway drug to stormwater management. So that's kind of what we use it for, just as more of an educational tool. But these systems are actually very effective. The one in the lower right-hand corner is a picture at the Clark Municipal Building. They harvest rainwater from the roof of the municipal building, and right next, I'm sorry, this is the public works roof of the public works yard. Right next to the public works yard is the high school. Now, Clark does not have a public car wash, so they do these nonprofit car washes every weekend. So now they have a concrete slab that they poured in the parking lot. People pull their car up to the concrete slab, and they use the water from this cistern to wash people's cars, and they give them a flyer, welcome to the green car wash. Here's things you can do at home to conserve water, and all the soapy water from the car wash goes down a concrete channel into a rain garden, and the rain garden removes about 95% of the surfactants, the soapiness of the water, so it can be discharged into the groundwater table. And we know that because we did studies at Rutgers for that. So it's a really great system. Right now, this cistern shown in the picture, there's a shed next to it, and they do have a little portable pump they pull out and pump it because there's not a lot of pressure coming out of these tanks, so they do have to use a pump for it, okay? And here's one we had built at a community garden. What's nice when you build these at community gardens, on vacant lots, when they sell the vacant lot, you can just go and pick up the cistern and take it to another lot. It's easy. They're plastic, they're transportable, they're not a big deal. This is one that slips right against the wall, which is nice because it's only about 21 inches wide. So you can still have walking along the sidewalk and still put this against the wall. This will hold about 530 gallons of water. Okay, these are some that we had built at a community college. What I like about this is they have internal downspouts. So we're able to tap into that internal downspouts and actually bring one into these cisterns to take some stormwater from the rooftop. Okay. The other thing we see a lot of are these dry wells. What's nice about a dry well, it's kind of underground, out of sight. What's also bad about a dry well, it's underground and out of sight. So you can't see if it's not working, right? You see if a rain garden's not working, has problems. You see there's too much water in it, it's not draining properly. So this is basically a plastic container underground with stone around it, fills with water, and it slowly infiltrates into the ground. The other thing we look at too are these rooftop practices. There's two types that we think about: green roofs and blue roofs. I'm sure you've seen a presentation of Philadelphia talking about their green infrastructure program. They always show this, and they show the picture of all the roofs in Philadelphia, and they click a button, they all turn into these beautiful green roofs, and everybody in the audience goes, ooh, ah, like they're watching fireworks, you know, and all the engineers in the audience say, wait a minute, that's got to be heavy. You can't put a green roof on an existing building without shoring up the structure, and they would be right. In most cases, a green roof weighs between 15 to 35 pounds per square foot. Now, most roofs can handle that extra weight because it's designed to handle that snow load. But if you put a green roof on a building and you get that 3 feet of snow on that building, there's a good chance a green roof and the snow will be in your lap. So you have to be very careful and make sure that the structure can actually hold up that roof, okay? So this is great for new construction, and we highly recommend it. What's nice about a green roof is it provides an extra layer of insulation on the roof, so it helps with the heating and cooling bills. What's also nice about it is it lasts a long time. The typical roof that we have on a building, a flat roof, is a rubber membrane and we tar over top of it. And every 5 to 7 years, we have to redo that because it starts to crack and starts to leak. This will last 25 to 30 years without any additional work. You just have to take care of the plants. So if you're going to be in a building for a long time, it's probably more economical to do kind of something like this. And then we have these things called a blue roof, where we're actually holding rainwater on the roof, right? There's these trays that we're capturing water in. We hold the water there, and there's a system to slowly let it out over time. If you talk to any facility manager and you tell him you're going to store rainwater on his roof, he's going to throw you out a second-story window. So it becomes very difficult to sell. So we need to get probably more of these in before people are really going to embrace this idea. So that's kind of the reality of it. So next is, there we go. Grant, you're up. Do I take questions now or later? How does this work? Any questions? Excellent. Good, thank you. No? Good. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the cistern, the typical cost of a cistern is about $2 a gallon, and that's typically installed. Now, the problem is, though, you have to also pour a concrete pad to put it on because it's a lot of weight, you know, or really have a really strong stone base. And then if you want to put a pumping system on, you have to redo gutters. It could be as much as $3 or $4 a gallon when you start adding all the other things on. But they're very inexpensive, but they're only a system that works 9 months a year, right? Because you have to drain them in the winter or also become a big ice cube. And that's bad. Yeah. That was Clark, New Jersey. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. Yeah. So with both the blue roofs and the green roofs, you're only storing about a ½ inch of water typically, because water is very heavy, right? So so you don't get a lot of storage. So like in a green roof, we say, okay, we're going to store a ½ inch of water in the soil. Blue roof, we may be able to get a little bit more because we don't have the soil weight, right? So we may be able to go up to 1 inch. But when I build a rain garden and take that storm water, I can design that to handle 3 to 4 inches of rain. So it's all about how much water you're trying to manage, you know. There's also a lot of incentives, like cities are starting to provide incentives for new construction to put on green roofs. So if there's a 3-floor limit in that area, if you put on a green roof, we'll let you put a 4th floor on your building, you know. So there's things like that you're starting to see happen a little bit more. And that's another way of incentives to kind of get developers to do that, because they are rather expensive. Green roofs are probably the most expensive practice that's out there right now. But everybody seems to like it because it's a very, what we often say, it's a very sexy practice. Everybody kind of likes it. It's really cool. But when you start figuring out how much water it's managing, how much it costs, you start having second thoughts about some of that. So there's other ways you can do that. Anything else? Yes. Okay. Rain gardens. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about design and construction and maintenance, but for the most part, maintenance is the first year when it's built, you have to water it. because usually the plants you're putting in are very small and they have to get established. So it takes about a year for the, what's that? Everything's perennials, yeah. So now we put in perennials. People will add annuals occasionally to it, but everything's perennials. Everything's native plants. We go at night to Longwood Gardens and we borrow plants. No, I'm just teasing. So we're using a lot of native stuff or hybrids of the natives. I mean, we like the inkberry holly, but it gets to be really big, so we use the shamrock inkberry holly, which stays small. So we're always trying to use natives. But the idea with the rain garden, the maintenance is really weeding. So weeding, the first year you have to water, first year you have to weed. Once stuff started established and you get that mulch layer set, the weeding becomes a lot less over the next few years. But it's the first 2 years it's major. It's weeding is really what the big issue is. You're exposing all the soil, weeds are going to come up. That's it. In the drought, you got to water it. Yeah. So what typically happens is the first year you're watering it to make sure it stays wet and everything gets established. The second year you rarely have to water it unless you get 2 or 3 weeks of no rain. So then you might have to water it, which is a great reason to put a cistern there too. So you have a cistern and a rain garden to water it. It'd be nice. Yeah. What else? We're going to get to rain garden costs a little bit later, and I can talk to you more about it afterwards too. Okay. Anything? What else? So for us, whenever we go into a project site, the first thing we try to do is we want to make sure we're going to capture rainwater that is being piped right to the road, which means it's going right to a catch basin, right to a stream. So that means that impervious surface is directly connected to the stream. So we want to disconnect that. The best way for us to disconnect that is with a rain garden. They can be inexpensive. You can build them yourself for the most part. I've taught a lot of public works guys on how to build these. You don't need huge expertise. Materials are all readily available. So it tends to be the cheapest, most effective system that we have. When you're in a very urban area, permeable pavement works very well. So this parking lot out here, if this was permeable pavement, we could store millions of gallons of stormwater underneath this, and you'd still be able to drive the fire trucks on it if we did it right. So that's another way to kind of think about it. But I would wait till it has to be repaved, which was about 3 years ago. So that's kind of what happens. Okay, good. Brant, you're up. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. As Chris mentioned, about fire trucks several times. If it hadn't been said yet enough, I do want to thank the West Grove Fire Company. This is where we're actually holding this today. And certainly we've been lucky so far, but keep in mind it is an active working fire station. So if you do hear an alarm, especially for those at home, there's a call coming in and we'll just have to adapt. So part of what I want to talk about is kind of why are we here today besides just hearing about green stormwater infrastructure. And part of that is to hear about the MS4 program, which is a municipal separate storm sewer system. Kind of slide, kind of what does that mean? This is all those other non-point sources that Chris talked about in the water cycle. The MS4 program in Pennsylvania is managed by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. It's a component of the Clean Water Act. Really kind of the first phase of the Clean Water Act was to address those point sources. That's the end of the pipe. So these are things that are in the built environment. There are other types of non-point source pollution, such as what we see off of agricultural operations, but this is to handle that urban load that's coming when it rains off of our built environment. As I mentioned, the Clean Water Act, it was really effective in addressing all of these first source problems in our built environment that's coming out. There's still more to be done, such as addressing combined sewer overflows, which are still happening in a lot of our large cities, but that's another problem, fortunately, we do not have in this watershed. So the MS4 program, as DEP monitors it, is a permitted program. Every 5 years, municipalities that have a certain urbanized area or density have to get these permits. We just had our permit cycle come up for the new session started in 2017. The next one will actually be in 2023 then. And right now, the DEP is working on updating that. There are changes to the program during each permit cycle. Where are these MS4 communities in Pennsylvania? All the colored places are where you see them. Obviously, the largest areas around more of our dense population centers in Pennsylvania. So what is included in an MS4 permit? Really, there are 6 minimum control measures that all permittees must meet. Public education and outreach on stormwater impacts, public involvement and participation, and a lot of that is, those first 2 are a lot of benefits that members of the CWMP get, that CWMP offers through programs like this. The different members do stuff like stream cleanups that can certainly count and help for you. We also have our annual advertising that it goes out, and all the members pay in, and BRC, Brian Winslow, manages that program, and that counts for your annual reporting, which is due this time of year. Illicit discharge and detection, that's what a lot of the public works crew, many of you in the room, do as part of your permit and reporting. Construction site stormwater runoff controls, post-construction stormwater management, you know, those are typically when things are happening that are disturbing. And then finally, pollution prevention and good housekeeping. It really is the paperwork side of things. As I mentioned, you know, MS4 program really is dealing with the urban environment, but we do have, you know, water quality challenges due to our ag operations. I just kind of wanted to bring this one up to demonstrate how sometimes in Chester County we do have some overlapping of that. This is a farm up in Honeybrook that we were working on. As you see in the photograph in the upper right, the cows were in the stream. Huge water quality problem. We were able to restore a native buffer on that, as you'll see in the bottom right, with those trees in tubes to protect them. But this is another view of the farm. You see the drop boxes here. You know, those directly discharge to the pipes you see on outlets on the upper right there. This farmer had 9 of these along his roadway. So, you know, he was, in addition to his own impairments, allowing us to put in that buffer is helping to address with the urban impact as well, that otherwise, you know, if you went out and just sampled his stream and weren't aware of this, you would think that, you know, all of those pollutants are coming off of his operation. So how can we help? This is the collective we here. This is CWMP, the members here today presenting to you. First one is funding, money. A lot of us are 501c3 nonprofit or other types of non-governmental organizations. We can apply for funding, and that municipalities may not be able to, and we can help install those. You know, sometimes it's in kind with technical assistance. Sometimes it's direct payments. We do have some of these programs going on now where we're helping municipalities fund their MS4 program and the BMPs that need to be installed. Technical assistance, as we're hearing about today, from groups like Christopher Upton, New Jersey Rutgers Extension. It can, both with design and implementation, we can also help with some of the behind the scenes stuff with getting your permit approved. And finally, project implementation. Once again, that's going to be the built stuff we're looking at. We're fortunate here that one of the big things on the money side, the William Penn Foundation out of Philadelphia has launched a Delaware River Watershed Initiative. This is a 10-year program to achieve measurable water quality results over this 10-year period. One of the clusters areas that they've identified within the Delaware River Watershed is the Brandywine Christina. This gives my groups and others a lot of funding to help my staff time. Also, they're making capital funding investments in groups like the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. That's one of those financial sources that we can apply for funding to help you all meet your project needs. You know, why is that important here? You know, as we know, Chester County is blessed with a lot of great resources, but it is in a highly developing area. Recently, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission estimated we're going to have 150,000 new people in Chester County over the next 30 years. That's 50,000 people per decade. So we're anticipating more urbanized area. We're anticipating more stormwater runoff. We're anticipating a larger responsibility for municipalities to meet their MS4 requirements. Another, how can we help funding wise? Shane Morgan with the White Clay Wild and Scenic has the Catch the Rain program. As we apply for funding, this is another source that both municipalities and, but more importantly, landowners can apply to help. You know, landowners can potentially be part of your MS4 solution. Technical assistance, another way we can do this is helping on intergovernmental agreements. This is some of the behind the scenes for implementing your MS4 program that we spoke about. Recently, through the CWMP, we helped Honeybrook Borough and Honeybrook Township develop a joint MS4. They're able to partner together to meet both stormwater needs in a very cost-effective manner. To get this approved by DEP, there's some important behind-the-scenes components that need to happen. One of these is an intergovernmental agreement. Part of that had to identify how projects were going to be proposed, how they were going to be managed, and how they were going to be funded. You'll see here what made sense for them was developing a cost share program where the borough is covering the majority of that investment need. So that kind of finishes my talk. You know, this has become something that, you know, we're all involved in all the time. These are actually a photo I took when I was coaching my son's soccer game. There was an errant kick I had to run down, and this is at his school. And we see, you know, kind of the impacts of unmaintained stormwater infrastructure. But if there are any questions now from the audience or via the chat? Nope. Thank you. Now we'll turn it over to Shane now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shane Morgan. I'm with the White Clay Watershed Association, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the West Grove project and how we came about selecting it. But first, I wanted to give a little bit of background on the White Clay Wild and Scenic River. So those of you who are from here, who have townships in here, I'm trying to get this on our screen. We're having technical difficulty for those viewing at home. Bear with me. I'm wiggling it. All right, let's see. Source not supported. I'm not touch. I don't even want to touch this. I'm going to use the mouse. We'll see if that works better. Oh, I didn't even touch it, so that wasn't even me.
Yeah, but
All right, maybe I'll just hold it. I'm just going to hold it. Oh, that didn't. This is what happens when I have to turn off and speak. I can advance on there, it's just not showing up here. Okay, maybe it'll, I was gonna say you guys could join in on the Zoom and watch it from your individual screens. It'll show up on there. All right, at any rate, I'm just gonna give a quick overview of the White Clay Watershed. We are a wild and scenic river. It doesn't mean that we don't have impaired waters, which is the slide that you're looking at on the right. All those red squiggly lines are impairments throughout the White Clay. What it does mean is that our river is protected in its free-flowing state, meaning no federal projects can come in and really harm the river, like think about the Conowingo Dam and things like that. So it prevents things like that from happening. The reason the act was enacted, and it was enacted in 1968, was to kind of safeguard some rivers in the United States so that those projects couldn't happen. So really, only 0.25% of all rivers in the United States have this designation, so it's pretty special compared to 17% of rivers that have been modified. Again, that being said, we do have impairments, and a lot of them are caused from stormwater or non-point source pollution that doesn't come directly out of the pipe, that can't be managed. These are all taken within the white clay. The top left picture is Egypt Run Road, Ramsey. And this was after like a big rain event in 2017, the road got blown out. And so they had to redo it. So there is a lot of road damage caused by stormwater runoff. The bottom left is just an old development that doesn't have any stormwater systems in it. And every time it rains, this is what I see coming down that private road and literally entering the creek right down on the left side of the picture. And then on the right, that's the city of Newark, which floods quite often when we have big rain events. They receive all our stormwater from up here in Pennsylvania. We also have some flooding here as well, like Avondale, the last big storm event. We had 100 people evacuated from an apartment building right along this branch. So it's definitely an issue that we need to address. So this is the watershed again. We're a bi-state watershed, Delaware and Pennsylvania. We're 30% ag, all that brown is ag land. We're 30% wooded, or a third, I should say, and about a third developed, so the yellow and red is developed. So we have multiple land uses here. But the map on the right shows the urbanized area, which is what you guys are all concerned about, and that's where you have to manage your stormwater. So that's more of the built area. And you can see it kind of eliminates the farmland up top, and it also eliminates the bi-state preserve in the middle where we have most of our forests. I love talking about this because when you look at the watershed as a whole, most of the land, 88%, is privately owned. But a lot of times we try to address projects on public land because it's easier, because we own it. We don't have to get private landowners to buy in. Okay. Well, our screen is not working again, but did it! It was working so nice there. So the reason why I even put the slide up and talk about private land is because I'm going to preface a program that the White Clay Wine and Scenic program started called Catch the Rain, where we do want to help our municipalities by addressing private landowners and going out and visiting with them to look at their property. So this is an example here where you see a house and it has all the green practices that Chris had already talked about, but on a residential scale. So we go out, we do a site visit, we send them a report, we list a bunch of different practices which they can try out on their property, and then we offer a monetary incentive to them, a 50-50 cost share, up to $2,500. I'm going to tell you most of the people do it themselves, and it never comes to $2,500. We did have a woman in the city of New York install permeable pavers. She took out her asphalt driveway, put in permeable pavers, and added a rain garden. It was awesome. That project was around $15,000, but she wanted to do it. So she still had an incentive of $2,500 from our program, which she took, and it was really a really nice project. So basically, yes?
You go closer to the last house, so people at home can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So this is a before picture of a typical suburban house with no really green stormwater infrastructure practices installed. And this is kind of what we're trying to promote. It not only, the landscaping not only helps you absorb and infiltrate water and provide wildlife habitat, it also beautifies your house. Hoping it comes back again. I feel like turning this. Should I turn this around so you guys can see this? Plug it back in again. All right. So now I'm going to focus on West Grove and why we selected it for this rain garden project. That red square up there is the borough. That's where it's located. You can see it's in between the east and the middle branches. And then on the right, you can see that it's pretty well developed already. It's pretty built out. And a lot of it was built before green stormwater infrastructure was even a thing. So it seemed like a great candidate for a green practice like a rain garden. I can't win today, right? So really the goals were to look throughout the entire borough and look for GSI area opportunities, like places where we could put or install things that would help with stormwater. And then to select one of those as a demonstration site. And then also to provide West Grove with the opportunity to use this in their stormwater permit plan. So those were the goals. We put the team together. Most of us are here today. Obviously, Chris and Holly from Rutgers and a whole crew of people from Rutgers that came out and did different parts of the project. Myself and Greg McCummings, the borough manager, sitting right over there, for West Grove. We had to have their willingness to do this and work with us on it, and he was very, very willing to pursue this. And then we wanted to include some other more regional entities, Brandywine Conservancy and Chester County Conservation District, so they could go through the process with us so that maybe we could keep replicating it elsewhere. Project timeline. We started talking about this in 2018. We had our first planning meeting in November of 2018. And then we kept having planning meetings and eventually submitted some grant applications, and one of them came through. It was from the Dockstetter Foundation, which is a local granting agency associated with SECRA, the landfill over in London Grove Township. They awarded this process. So once we got that funding, Chris and his team could hit the ground running and walk around the borough, identify sites, do some GIS mapping, and things like that, and put together plans for the borough that we could work off of. So that took a while. And then eventually, through some more planning meetings and conversations with Greg, we selected the project that we really wanted to pursue for implementation, okay? And Rutgers presented to West Grove Borough Council in March, right before the country shut down, so it was perfect timing. Thanks, Chris. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be in the ground right now. And then in May, we started construction, and in June, the project was completed, June 1st, to be exact. Some of the outputs. There were a lot of outputs. The plans are pretty amazing. This is the borough right here, that square on the left. We have a green infrastructure feasibility study. I think 15 to 16 projects or places, locations were identified where we could do things. Specifications on those projects were included in this report. And then we also, because we were so excited about West Grove, who wouldn't be, we put together a town square plan. So if they wanted to focus in the area where most of the people and residents and visitors and businesses are, then we could have a whole like focus area down there on green infrastructure, and it could be used for interpretive purposes as well. Other outputs were engineered drawings. So this is important for your MS4 permit. If you're going to include things like this in there, you need to have an engineer sign off on them. So we actually have 3 potential projects, even though we selected Admiral Grove Library. Harmony Park, which is municipal land, which makes it easier to do work on, was one that was selected, as well as a commercial property in the town square where we would have to get landowner approval to do something. But we have those plans, they're shovel ready. We can go to another funder and seek funds to implement these should we get the go to move forward. So it's good to have that in our back pocket. We got a lot more than we bargained for, I think. And then the main project that we're going to talk about today is the rain garden itself. So that was the output, and that's part of what we used the grant funding for as well. This is before and after picture. You'll see the after today when we go over there. I'm just going to quickly walk through it because all I did was document what was going on and help with the planting. Chris will talk about more of the construction work, but it started May 18th. These are some of West Grove Public Works staff. So one of the ways that we cut costs was having them do the construction and use their equipment. And Holly was there as well as Chris most days, telling them what to do, how to do it, what to look for, just really getting them comfortable with this process. So that's it. That's the drain, not set up yet, obviously. And here it is after the drain was set up. It's called an atrium drain. Basically, when that fills up, the water will go into that perforated pipe and then head out to the storm sewer system. Originally, both downspouts to that roof over there were going directly to that storm sewer system. So we're collecting some of that water and treating it and infiltrating it before it goes out that way. Obviously, it hasn't been planted yet. This is during construction. Here it is with the bioretention media, the amended soil put into that rain barn space. That's the actual drain there. So the soil comes right up to that drain. Here it is mulched. This is the planting day. and we finalized it on June 1st. We put a sign up so that people walking into the library or the municipal building using the community room would know what it was there for and what the function was. We are eventually going to replace it with a more interpretive sign, but I wanted to wait until I had good pictures to use for the sign. So that in the time being, this is what it looked like June, July, August, 3 months after we planted it. So we used small landscape flats, 17 of them, and they filled in 3 months and flowered, and that's what it looked like. And then here, and hopefully it'll play, and it might not play for those of you on Zoom, depending on, didn't play for me either. But basically, this was a film showing how the rain is filling up the rain garden and it's working. This is only a month after. It was about a 2-inch rain event, almost 3-inch rain event. And the rain garden functioned fabulously. So we were, and as you know, we've had major storm events since then, and it's still holding up. So an overview of the costs. The total project overall was about $13,000, but $10,500 of that was all of the engineering, design, planning, all that goes into making plans, as well as overseeing the construction for pretty much a 2-week period, not every day, but on and off as we could get out into the field. The rain garden itself was only about $2,500. The plants alone were probably $1,200, and then all the other stuff would be like the stones, the soil, the mulch. So if I just separate the rain garden costs, it only turned out to be about $3 a square foot, which is pretty darn cheap. And so one way to cut costs as a municipality would be to have Public Works do the construction and use their own equipment. So can small projects make a difference? This is why I always became interested in rain gardens. I read about a study years ago in Minnesota where they took 2 streets in a neighborhood that were draining. They were 2 separate drainages, okay? One was a control, one was a treatment, where they put 17 rain gardens in using curb cuts like what Chris talked about. So they were taking the runoff coming down the driveways off the properties to the road and putting it back into the ground by collecting it off the roadways. These were more expensive because, well, first of all, it's 20 years ago, so they would probably be more than $12.50 per square foot today. But they hired a landscape designer, engineering design build firm to do all of these rain gardens so that they would be more uniform. And they were on a slope, so it needed retaining walls and things like that. Does it work? Well, here are the results from that study. They took average runoff percentages before construction from both those watersheds, the test and the control, and then they did it again post-construction. And as you can see, the one with the 17 rain gardens reduced 90% of the runoff going down, and there's a lake at the bottom. So they were really trying to protect that lake. So yeah, they can make a difference. And I'm probably a big cheerleader for them. So that's all I have, and then I'll talk more when we actually go to the rain garden about the plants and the maintenance and things like that. So I'm gonna bring Chris back up unless anyone has immediate questions about any of that. And you can ask me afterwards. Oh, Andrew. Andrew.
Pretty good return? Is that a good thing? Is that something that we can model? It seems really like
Sure. So out of the total cost of that garden, 75% was grant funded. So that was, you know, we applied for the grant, we got it. The rest of it came from the Watershed Association and the Borough. So they paid for all of the
Bioretention soil.
mulch and the rocks, the piping, all the materials besides the plants. We paid for the plants. And they also had a lot of in-kind, and I think that's where we really made the savings, in-kind services that the Public Works Department put in.
It seems like a good partnership.
Oh, it was fabulous. We're gonna do it again, right, Craig?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're ready.
Thanks to DEP, I'll fly back.
So, and I will say this, the library is right there, even though this was a Borough project and Borough Hall's right there, the library is right there viewing it. And they put a post on Facebook that made me so happy. They posted the rain garden. They talked about how much they enjoyed watching it and how it functioned. And I'm thinking, great, they have a pretty big audience, right? People that are following them. And so they're actually using it to educate some of their patrons, which is again, one of the reasons why we chose that site. So the slides are probably going to work for you, Chris. Corey? Okay.
The first question from Karen is, it looks so great, what public reaction?
Oh, well, as you know, the library likes it. I don't really know. Like, people don't contact me about it. Have you been, Greg?
So, what I will say, the only negative feedback that we've gotten is from political parties, because it is a polling station. This used to be their campsite, and it no longer is. So that is, beyond that, we've had, from residents, from patrons of the library, postings that we've done, we've had nothing but positive reaction. But again, that spot is where the political parties have previously set up their tents to harass people that are coming into the polling stations. And so they're not pleased about that. There's nothing really, it is what it is. Borough Council approved it. It's the right thing for us to do, as part of that public outreach, that public education piece. It was a no-brainer because of the in my opinion, because of the traffic that comes into the library. I'm really looking forward to that bigger, more encompassing signage to let folks understand and educate them on what it's doing and how we were able to accomplish it. So,
and to link it back to the Catch the Rain program, which is where I kind of started this, this is going to be a demonstration site. It can be used for residents in the borough. It can be used for residents throughout the White Clay watershed. We can send them here and say, hey, here's a rain garden. This is what it looks like. This is how it functions. And that's how I plan on using it. And for future workshops, when we're allowed to do them, I can host them at the library or the community room there. And I have a demonstration right outside my door. So I think it was a really good fit.
You make a plant list development. I would think like people come in and they're like, oh, this is great. And you have like a little black card.
I have one now, Andrew, which I will certainly send you the PDF of. So. And some of that will go on the signage, some of the plants. Not all of them, there's too many, but some of them will. So.
I have a question from the chat.
Okay.
From Scenic. Have any of the municipalities received MS4 credit for these practices? Also, have any of the municipalities where these practices have been implemented have stormwater fees?
I can only speak to this project. West Grove does not have any stormwater fees, correct?
correct.
Correct. I don't think anyone in White Clay charges stormwater fees. It's in terms of their MS4 permit, as you know, they're still held up, right? It's still being looked at by DEP, but this would be something that would be amended into their permit because it wasn't originally in there. We didn't have the grant funding. They submitted the plans in 2017 or 2018. I can't remember, but it was before we even started down this road. So this would be like an amendment that they would have to submit. But we have not done it with any other municipalities. And as far as I know, the Catch the Rain program, when I go out and work with residential homeowners, can't count for their MS4 permit, but it can count for education and outreach, which we did provide you all with this permit cycle, the weeks that we went out and what township they were into. So unless an engineer signs off on it, then I don't think it can count.
I remember this on our task force tour 2 years ago. Westchester Borough had rain gardens part of their city, and I'm pretty sure they were giving credits to install the rain garden
Okay.
on your property. So they were using it as a really good tool, which I think was good because it was encouraging, as Chris said, multiple rain gardens. So
was their borough engineer then going around and certifying the gardens for them to count? He was, yes. So you still need that engineering sign-off part. I'm gonna pass it over to Chris, and there'll be more time for questions when we're done as well, and also at the rain garden. It's been on the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's been good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
there you go.
Okay, so we're fine. So, and I am a licensed engineer in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, so what do you need me to sign? I'll pretty much sign anything. I'm gonna talk about design. Okay, so this is gonna be planning, design, and construction in 20 minutes. Okay, so hopefully it'll be good for you guys. So it's all about managing impervious surfaces, first of all. So we're trying to disconnect those impervious surfaces that are directly connected to the stream. So that rooftop that's being piped to the road or piped to the catch basin is going right into the inlet, right into the stream. So we're trying to disconnect that and capture that water at the source. We're using rain gardens to do that in this case. The rain gardens we design are typically designed for the 2-year storm, which is about 3.3 or 3.5 inches of rain over 24 hours, depending where you are. So that's what we're looking to try to capture here. This is actually a picture from something Shane just showed, the Burnsville, Minnesota project. This is the blue house picture. We're required to show this in all rain garden presentations, by the way. So it's before and after picture, and you can see how beautiful the rain garden adds value to the house. So this is really what we're trying to get across with this photo. So when we're talking about disconnecting, this picture here talks about disconnecting the roadway, right? So we're capturing water from the roadway on front of these people's property in this rain garden. In this case, it's a municipal building in a small town in southern Jersey. We put 2 rain gardens to capture roof runoff. In this case, once again, it's roof runoff at the library that we're going to go see and the municipal building in a few minutes, okay? Different parts of the rain garden. Like I said, the rain garden is a shallow landscape depression. It's usually designed to hold between 3 to 12 inches of water. So after the rainstorm, it could fill up with 12 inches of water. Within 24 hours, it's typically drained down into the soil. So there is no possibility for mosquito breeding. That takes about 72 hours. The bottom of the rain garden is flat, so it fills up uniformly, okay, as it's filling. So water doesn't really kind of flow through it. It just fills and overflows at a location that you designate. And we always armor the overflow with stones so we don't cause any erosion. And this is kind of what we're talking about. We're trying to focus on capturing water from rooftops, parking lots, streets, any place where the water is going directly to the street or into the catch basin or into the stream, okay? What's nice about the rain garden or bioretention systems, they really mimic natural conditions. It's really trying to mimic what happens in a forest where you get infiltration, you get evapotranspiration, the roots of the plants open up the soil and get more water back into the ground. You get sedimentation, so anything that comes in that sediment in it, the sediment settles out. The plants filter out the pollution, the plants uptake nutrients, right? We fertilize our lawn with phosphorus and nitrogen. When that gets into the rain garden, the plants use that, right? So that doesn't wind up in our streams, right? We also have microbial activity. There's a layer of mulch in there and there's soil. So as the water is passing through the mulch and the soil, there's microbial activity to kind of break down some of those pollutants also. And it has a strong aesthetic value. This is a typical engineering cross-section of this. I'm sure you can see that, but in this case, we're showing 12 inches of bioretention soil mix that gets in. So we're excavating down 9 inches and then an additional 12 inches. We fill in 12 inches with really good soil. The bioretention mix is about 70% sand and about 30% compost material. We add 3 inches of mulch and then we have 6 inches of ponding on top of that. So we're digging down about 21 inches, okay? Like I said, most rain gardens are designed to capture the first inch and a quarter of rain. You'll see all the ones down in Philadelphia as part of their green infrastructure program that address the combined sewer overflows. They design everything to capture an inch of rain. Here, we're trying to do more. We're trying to capture about 3 inches of rain, 3 to 4 inches of rain, because we also want to address flooding issues, right? Infiltration is very important. So there's 2 factors with the rain garden. How do we design it? It's the drainage area, how much area is drained to it, and how fast does the soil infiltrate, okay? So we measure infiltration rates. If the infiltration rate is less than a half inch per hour, it's really not a good spot for a rain garden, or you'll have to go in and amend the soil and put an underdrain system in, okay? The infiltration rate is greater than 10 inches per hour. You may have to add some other material to the rain garden to slow the water down because the water's passing through it way too quickly and it's not getting treated, okay? So, and like I said, we amend it with coarse sand and compost. You have to use coarse sand. If you use the sand that you put in the play box, in the sandbox, it doesn't let water pass through. It becomes basically cement. So it has to be a coarse angular sand that you use, okay? So this is a design problem that we typically show people, a driveway of a house. And you can see here, the driveway is 50 feet long, 15 feet wide at the end, and there's an extra piece in front of the garage. So it's about 1,000 square foot of driveway. I also figured out the corner of the roof of the buildings. I thought maybe we could put that into the rain garden. the rain garden would go at the very end of the driveway and towards the backyard. This driveway actually drains towards the backyard. We go into a drainage ditch. It goes out to the stream. So it really is directly connected to the stream. So we do some quick calculations. We figure out the rain garden should be about 250 square feet in size. So now we go back and we have to include the drainage area of the rain garden as part of the size of the rain garden as part of our drainage area. So our drainage area was 1,000 square feet, which was the driveway. Now we're building a 250 square foot rain garden. Well, any water that lands in the rain garden has to also be treated by the rain garden. So we have to include that and make sure the rain garden is big enough to hold that water. So we wind up redoing these calculations and the rain garden becomes a little bit bigger. So in this case, it's about 300 square feet in size. We often use a program, and Rutgers uses this HydroCAD program because Rutgers is very frugal with money unless it's regarding our football team. So HydroCAD is a very inexpensive model that we're able to buy for our students. You can go to hydrocad.net and actually download a free version of this that'll work for about an hour. My students do this all the time. At the end of 59 minutes, you save it, you close it, then you open up another free version and you can keep going. So that's the way the students use it. But it's a very inexpensive program. It actually has some very cool things in it. You can put in your drainage area and you can have it calculate the runoff. And then you could show how much water is running off of that area. And then you can put your rain garden in and design the rain garden. So we do this both ways. In this first graph here, we're designing the rain garden to handle 1.25 inches of rain over 2 hours. And we can see the peak elevation gets to be 100.28. When we do our designs, we set the bottom of the rain garden at an arbitrary elevation of 100 feet above sea level, okay? Then we run it through this model, and the model says, okay, that's gonna fill up with 0.28 feet of water when you get 1.25 inches of rain over 2 hours, okay? So that means my rain garden is gonna be about 4 inches deep, right? So then we run it for the 2-year storm, we see, oh, it's only gonna fill up with 0.55 feet of water, right? So my rain garden needs to be about 7 inches deep to be able to handle the 2-year storm, okay? So that's kind of how we design this, okay? And we use this, we go out and actually build it, okay? A big question that always gets asked is this going to matter, right? And that question kind of already came up. Well, how do we get credit for this? You know, it's one rain garden. Is it really going to make a difference? And there's an old Chinese proverb, the mighty waterfall begins with one drop of water, right? So our thought process is if we put enough of these in, they actually matter, right? So the one rain garden to treat my driveway, my 1,000 square foot driveway, is going to capture, treat, and infiltrate about 34,350 gallons of water per year. And if I can get 30 of my neighbors to build them, we're over 1 million gallons of stormwater a year. So that's the power of this, is that we need to get many, many people doing this, and we can actually make a difference, okay? So this is the example here at the library. This is the engineering drawing we produced. And by the way, those numbers that Shane, I turned to Holly and I said, you know, really, we did this for that much, you know? I mean, we did a full-blown green infrastructure feasibility study for the town. We did a master plan for the town. We did 3 engineering designs, and then we oversaw the construction. Well, Holly helped with construction. She likes digging. So for what was it, like $10,500? So yeah, so this is why we're in Pennsylvania, because we're cheap, and they grabbed us over here quickly. So this is the drainage area for the rain garden. It's the roof of the municipal building, the library, 3,700 square feet. This is the garden itself. You can see the red circle there. I blew that up so you can see it. It tells you how deep the garden is. The base elevation is 379.5 feet. We actually did real elevations here. And the rain garden's 1/2 foot deep, okay? The top of the berm is another 1/4 foot above that. And so the base of the garden is 635 square feet, and the top of the garden is 815 square feet. You don't want to make it like a box. It has to have a gentle slope on the side. So as you're going up, getting deeper, the garden's getting bigger in its footprint, okay? And we can see, here's how much water this garden will manage. If we think about the storm was designed for the 2-year storm, it's about 95% of our rainfall comes in storms that are less than the 2-year storm. So the garden is going to capture and manage about 98,000 gallons of stormwater a year, okay? But because we have an underdrain system in it, all that water isn't going to infiltrate. Only a portion that's going to infiltrate. So we modeled it. We showed that about 2/3 of that's going to infiltrate. About 61,000 gallons is going to infiltrate into the ground, okay? So each of these designs, we have a planting plan, and you can see this. We try to stick to perennials and shrubs. In this case, we had listed here. Now, the planting plan is interesting. We come up with a really cool planting plan, and then we call the nursery, and they don't have any of those plants. So then we change out our planting plan. So it's an iterative process, but we kind of have an idea of what we're going to do going into it. Before we do this, we do the one call, and that's very important. And then here's the steps for the rain garden, real quickly. We mark it out with white paint, right? We dig out the grass. We make sure it's at the right depth, okay? We add the underdrain system. We amend the soil, so we add the soil amendments to it. We kind of rototill that in, make sure it's all encompassed. We build the berm, and we make sure the overflow and the inlet's set and armored so there's no erosion in those areas. We put an overflow in, like I said. We make sure the rain garden bottom is flat, so we have the surveying equipment out there to make it flat, or we have the mason's level we can put out there and make sure it's flat. You can see the picture all the way on the left-hand side is that little level. The picture up in the upper right-hand corner is Jillian, one of my staff, looking through an auto level. That system costs about $500 from Home Depot, or you could buy the mason's level, which costs about 99 cents at Home Depot, and you just have to get a mason string across and use 2 stakes, and it's just as effective. You put the you connect the downspouts. These are the guys here in West Grove connecting the downspouts, having, I think, a little bit too much fun. And then we put the plants in the ground, right? We mulch. Mulch is very important. We like to get 2 to 3 inches of mulch in there because that way it gets the weeds back, and it's not bad to weed. And mulch also holds the moisture, so we have those drought periods that you were talking about can help with that too. And then we water. The first year we have to water and make sure the plants get established, okay? And then we take our picture, right? So if you're a politician or a landscaper, you lean on a shovel when your picture's taken. If you're a student, you have to be in midair when the photograph's taken. You see the picture on the right-hand side. So, and that's it.